Hello, writing community, and welcome to this week's Friday Night Chat Show. We have a fantastic guest to introduce to you very shortly. But before I do, very briefly, we will get the beer token appreciation done. This week's sponsor is someone we know very well in the writing community, and it is no other than Lalai Love. And her book, The Decoding of Joe, Hall of Ignorance, is out now. Captivating, smart, unputdownable, a must read. So that is her book, which is, it looks like that. I'll just remove that out of the way. And that is available on Amazon. So please go and have a look at that and support our authors because they really support the show as well. So thank you for this. And I hope that book does fantastically well. So just remove that there. Okay, so without any further ado, let me introduce our guest tonight. He is known for his feature films that won awards a while back, Green Street being one of them. He has also sold over 1 million books worldwide. And his book, In the Now, is out now. Please welcome Dougie Brimson.
Good afternoon. Is it afternoon or evening? I'm not sure.
It's the afternoon, just about.
Okay, right.
Oh, it's afternoon, yeah. How are you doing?
Right, okay. I'm good. I'm very good, thank you. Yeah. Working
Excellent.
away, as always.
Yeah. How is working in, I guess, the environment that we're all stuck in at the moment? Is it changed much for you on your processes?
It hasn't made, to be honest, it hasn't made much difference to me from when it kicked in. I mean, I work from home, so I usually lock myself away anyway. I'm quite happy being solitary. There was no sport, so you know. The difficulty at the moment is I have got a wife who's we're in lockdown. She's about to go into hospital. But I've also got a brand new grandson who comes out of hospital today, and of course I can't go and see him until the wife comes out of hospital. Which is a bit of a pain. But,
yeah. Well, it's congratulations. At the same time, it's kind of you'll have to kind of wait it out, I guess.
Yeah, I can't accept any congratulations because I didn't really do much. Well, about 30 odd years ago, I did, but apart from that, I haven't had much input into this one at all.
Oh, fantastic. So all is kind of well, I guess, in that respect. Then, so your book In the Know is out now.
Yep.
How has that gone down?
It's gone down really well. I mean, it's a third book in the trilogy.
Yeah.
And I wrote it purely because so many people were asking me what happened to my central character. He's a guy called Billy Evans. He's he's a bit of a scumbag, but he's kind of one of them guys you like to like.
Yeah.
You know, even though you should dislike him, he's got a lot of endearing features about him. But he's not a very nice guy when you strip him apart. But everybody was asking me for another installment. I mean, the first book of The Crew came out in 2000.
Yeah.
And that came about in a rather odd way. And then the second book came out. Excuse me. The second book, Top Dog, came out a couple of years after that. And no, they both did quite well. And then when the ebook phenomenon started, they underwent a massive resurgence, as did my career, really. And I was under pressure to write another book about him, which has restarted again because now the trilogy, everyone wants it to be what's a 4-book thing? I don't know. Quadruple G.
Yeah, quadrilogy. I'm not sure.
Quadrilogy. I don't know. That's a good word.
Yeah.
So and I had a couple of ideas for other books, which were kind of about what's going on in the country at the moment. There was, you know, the impact of the state, the breakdown of law and order, all those sorts of things. Brexit was going on, obviously, and I just wrapped everything in together and just thought, well, I can tie this together, and this can be my third book, which is actually close the story off. But what it's done is actually open up the story even further, and so it looks like I'll probably do a 4th book around my main man. But it's gone down really well, primarily because I touch on a lot of issues which are really starting to piss a lot of people off. You know, the policing of the country, the gang culture, knife crime, all those sorts of things, which made it all the more interesting to write, of course. Because you're kind of touching on things that, you know, that was unfolding in real time.
Yeah. Just before I ask a few more in-depth questions about this story, can you? I know it's obviously a series, but can you let someone who may be watching that hasn't seen your work what the general consensus of the story is.
Yeah, I mean, the Crew, which was the first book, came about because up to that point, I hadn't done any fiction. I'd done about 5 or 6 non-fiction books about the culture of football and football fans and issues such as football hooliganism, racism in football, impact on football crowds and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I had a phone call from Linda LaPlante, as you do, asking me to go in and talk to her because she wanted to write an episode of one of her series based around the subject of football hooliganism. And so I went to see her, had a meeting with them, and she showed me this thing, and it was rubbish, and I told her it was rubbish for all kinds of reasons. It was just the hooliganism element of a story had just been tacked on, so it was hooliganism. But in real time, it made no sense. So she said to me, well, come up with something else. Can you come up with something else for me? This was on the Friday. She said, you've got till Monday lunchtime. And I said, I can do that. And I went home, scratched my head about where to start. And I'd seen something. I'd seen something that had triggered an idea for a story in one of the papers. Because when I write fiction, it's all about the ending. So I always write the endings first, but that's a whole different thing. And I thought this would fit. And so I invented this guy called Billy Evans, who was my central character. Wrote the outline to a story, sent him it on the Monday. She loved it, sent it up the line to ITV. ITV didn't like it because there was an element of xenophobia because it was wrapped around English football. And she said, well, you should write this as a book, as a novel. And I said, well, I've never done a novel before. So she said, well, you should give it a shot. And I said, well, I'll give it a shot if you give me a quote for the cover. And I did, and she did. And the first edition of The Crew has got a quote from Linda LaPlante on the cover. And it went down so well at the time. And it's basically about a guy who is a high up in the hooligan hierarchy, who looks to extend the power he's got into the world of organized crime. Yeah. And it went down really well, particularly with my market, which is primarily laddie football, working classy white van man guys. No disrespect to them, of course. And I did a follow-up to that, Top Dog, which took the story even further into the world of organized crime and took it more away from football into worlds, such as, working on the doors, protection, security, all that kind of stuff. That did really well as well. We ended up filming that a few years ago, and the film did really well. And but The Crew, Top Dog, ended with a particular tragedy for my central character, and so 15 years later, I've kind of brought him back, where he's slowly been rebuilding his life after coming back from this tragedy, and how he gets involved in other stuff, which leads into political stuff and all that kind of stuff.
So before this story, or that story where you were told to sort of maybe try it as a novel, had you thought about writing? Obviously, you've written before as in screenplays and things like that, but
I hadn't up to that point. No.
Oh, okay.
Up to that point, I'd only done non-fiction. I mean, I never set out to be a writer. I never wanted to be a writer. I mean, I've been in the Air Force for 18 years, and I left in 1994, and ended up working as an extra on film and TV, and doing stuff like The Bill and the odd movie here, there, and everywhere. And it was while we were doing that I used to work with my younger brother, and we had an idea for a book about football fans in the build up to Euro '96. And we wrote that book. We got very lucky with publishing it. We didn't know we got lucky. It was just one of them things. I mean, we only ever approached one publisher. Neither of us had ever written anything. Yeah. We thought we were going to write one book and that was it. We were going to be like minted and we could retire forever. That book did really well. We ended up doing another 3 books. Then Eddie and I went our separate ways, writing-wise. I did a book for Mainstream in Edinburgh, then went back to Headline for a couple more, and then the approach from Linda LaPlante came. And the screenwriting stuff came after that. First, I was talking to someone Now, I get confused about the chronology of these because I'm not the brightest when it comes to the history. But I was Green Street came about because I'd been at that time when the internet had started. All the hooligans latched onto it really quickly. So you had these football forums, which were kind of, we'll meet you here, we'll meet you there, this, that, and that, and blah, 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 which were great fun. But everyone's got fake names because we all thought the police was on that sort of stuff. And someone got in touch with me and said, there's this bird from America who wants to do a movie about hooliganism. You should look into this. And I got in touch with her using a fake name. Got involved in dialogue with her, sounded her out, and in the end, I said, "Well, you need to speak to this guy, Dougie Brimson." No, I don't want to speak to him. She said, "Don't want nothing to do with it. I've heard like he's a bit of a dick and stuff like that." So this went on a few weeks, and I said, "Look, I'm not talking to you. You need to speak to this guy, Brimson guy." And she said, "I've already spoke to him." And I'm thinking, "You fucking liar! You haven't at all." Oh, sorry, you've gone. You haven't at all. And but in the end, we made contact, and we flew out. She flew me out to Hollywood, and we thrashed the script out and all that sort of stuff. But in the meantime, I'd had a phone call, and I can remember this vividly because I was in Southend with my missus for the day. And I got a phone call from this guy called John Baird, who said, "I want to do a film about a short movie about football hooliganism. Would you be interested in writing it?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And we did that, and that came out. That film was called It's a Casual Life. And John went on to film, of course, the Laurel and Hardy movie and Filth and all those sort of things. He was the director. Great bloke, really lovely bloke. And so that's how I got into screenwriting. But I've always, and I continue to treat screenwriting really as a hobby. I don't take it, I take what I do seriously, but I still consider myself primarily as an author.
Yeah.
Because I don't enjoy screenwriting.
I was going to say, what was the difference, major difference? And
massive.
Yeah.
Massive.
So you much prefer writing as an author, and is your style structured, or is it more Panzer style, the approach to authoring?
Oh, I'm very much, I mean, as I said before, the two things are completely different. And they're different for one significant reason, is that a script is a collaboration.
Yeah.
And my military background taught me to be a team worker. So I haven't got a problem with working as a team. The problem I have is the people you have to work with tend to be egomaniacs. And I'm quite happy to work with people to develop a script. I always say a script should be written in pencil because everything's going to change. Yeah. You can't get precious about a script. And I never do. But that doesn't mean I'm going to sit back and let someone change something for the sake of changing something. But I just find it really hard work. Not the writing, the people. And it can be really enjoyable, but it can be an absolute fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
And I don't particularly enjoy it. With books, I'm in control of everything.
Yep.
And if I'm self-publishing it, I have input on the cover, I have input on when it comes out, the text, everything else, and I prefer that because I like to write in a particular way. As I said before, I always write my endings first. All of my novels are sparked off by endings, by ideas for endings, because I like a massive twist at the end.
Yeah.
And so what I'll do is I'll write my ending based around really some kind of generic character, and then I'll gradually get an idea. My character will slowly develop in my head as I'm kind of polishing that off to the point where the last probably 20 pages of the book are set in stone, pretty much set in stone.
Okay.
Then I'll go back to the beginning and I'll paint the rest. And as I do that to get myself to my ending, because once you're at the ending, you know where you finish is.
Yeah.
You know where you've got to get to. So you can do anything as long as you know where you're getting to that point. And nothing frustrates me more than seeing someone saying, "Yeah, I've got this book. I don't know how to finish it." And it's like, well, if you don't know how to finish it, that's impacting on everything you've done so far.
Yeah.
Because the journey is all over the place. And it's about taking your reader on a journey. One of the things a lot of writers tend to forget, in my experience, is your job is to entertain people. If your book's not entertaining, why on earth would anyone really want to see it through to the end? If you know where you're going to finish, you can take your characters anywhere. You can bring people in, you can do whatever you like with them, but you know where they've got to get to, because that's where you want your reader to get to. And so what I'll do is I'll pants that up to my ending. And by that time, I've started to get a handle on all my characters. And with my characters, I need three things. I need a name, a face, and a voice. With the name, the first name will come to me because I know this guy sounds like a Jim, Joe, whatever. He kind of sounds like that. Surnames I'll usually get off Facebook.
Yeah.
Or to suit, it will have to suit. Billy Evans rolls off the tongue, so that's how it came. And with a face, I'll find a face again. That character will come to me, so I'll get that face. It can be anybody; it doesn't matter. It can be you, it can be anyone. With a voice is different. I know roughly how he'll sound and how he'll look. And I'll base that on somebody either I know or someone in the public eye. So it can be anyone from Vinnie Jones to Robbie Williams to my mate Pete. And the reason I do that is if I get stuck, I can either ring Pete up and have a conversation with him, or I can listen to Vinnie Jones on YouTube. And once I hear their voice, it kind of unlocks my chain of thought.
Yeah.
And I think, well, that's what he'll say. That's how he'll talk.
It's a fantastic approach.
And it works, and it works for me. One of the problems I had when we filmed Top Dog was because we filmed it, I think it was 2004. So, no, 2014. So that's 14 years after I'd written The Crew and the novel of Top Dog. I had Billy firmly in my head. I knew everything about him, what he looked like, what he sounded like, how he walked, everything. All of a sudden, we've cast Leo Gregory as Billy, who is nothing like what I've got in my head. And writing the screenplay initially was a real struggle because I had to suddenly transfer my Billy into Leo Gregory. And it took me a good few weeks to do it. And then, of course, when I wrote In the Know, the novel, I wrote it with Leo Gregory. Leo Gregory is now Billy.
Yeah. And
so we're talking about doing the film of In the Know. And the first thing I said when this came to me was I rang Leo and said, look, if we do In the Know, do you want to play Billy again? And he said, absolutely. Great. Okay, then we're set. I won't have to go through that nonsense again. So I don't know if it will happen. But that's my process. That's the process for me. I'm going through it now, with my new project, which is my first military thriller.
Okay.
Which has got 6 main characters, one of which is Leo, because I've already written the screenplay for this. The script is already being financed. It's currently being financed. One of the roles I wrote for Leo, so that's easy. It's easy done. The others, I've kind of dotted them around actors, a wish list of actors.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I work.
It's interesting. I mean, is it the military, your experience in the military, is this obviously coming through in this new fiction? And is it fiction work, I'm assuming, this story that's evolving now? Yeah. And obviously using your experiences within the military and sort of knowledge of what's going on to influence this book then as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been asked a lot. I did 18 years in the Air Force. And I was asked a lot, about, are you ever going to do a military book? And in truth, I've been going to football all my life, so I've got all that research to call on. Yeah. With the Air Force, it's quite, my career in the Air Force revolved as a ground engineer, revolved around engineering and drinking and doing things that I really shouldn't, I really don't want to write about, let's be honest. And so, but it was quite tedious to anybody outside of the military. There was nothing, I fought in 2 wars, but my wars were in engineering workshops, or porter cabins on the side of runways. It's not exactly dramatic. with this new thriller, the fact that the characters are RAF, the main characters are RAF engineers, is fundamental to the plot.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that to call on, but more importantly, it's their interaction with each other.
Yeah.
The banter, the way they talk to each other, the way they treat each other with complete, disrespect.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's the dark
ultimately,
humor that
they're
gets you
like
through, isn't
brothers,
it?
and it's absolutely the dark, total dark humor constantly. And there's slight, if there's two characters, there's one character in particular who doesn't trust one of the others at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he can't say anything. It's that you can't, because you don't want to be seen as the negative in this group. So all the time he's like fishing away for, I need something to prove what I'm suspecting.
Mm.
And it's been really interesting. It's been a really interesting exercise to get back into that mindset.
Mm. Yeah. You've written in a few different genres. So is
yeah, an understatement.
So have you got like a sort of specific favorite, or is there something that still you haven't written in that you kind of want to go in that direction of?
I have. The thing is, I've written non-fiction comedy with The Geezer's Guide to Football, and to a lesser extent, The Art of Fart, which was an ebook I did. That in itself was a saga. And then I've done fiction comedy and fiction thrillers, and that it's kind of that's a problem. That's been a problem for me, because it's kind of, I'm not pigeonholed. I mean, it's not for me as a writer, because it's great. I can write whatever I like and punt it out. And if no one will publish it, I'll put it out as an ebook. I really don't care. But it's if I had a personal preference, it would be comedy, because my dad was a comic. Billy's Log is my favorite book. Bizarrely, I called two of my characters in two different books Billy for some bizarre reason. I think it was something trying to be clever. But Billy's Look is still my favorite book. Wings of a Sparrow is another comedy book about football. And they've done really well. And to be fair to my readers, because another thing I always say is the most important person in this process is the reader.
Yeah.
Because without them, you've got nothing. And so you've always got to think of them. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I get from my lot, which is what I always call them, is that they like the fact they don't particularly know what they're going to get next.
It's really interesting, because for most authors, they have an expectation of what's coming next. As you said, that in a way they're pigeonholed, but their fans know what they expect should be next. So for you to have sort of the opposite of that is quite an interesting thought.
Yeah, I mean, I've funnily enough, we've when In the Know came out, somebody sent it to one of the football websites, the Tottenham website, to review. And there's a guy there who does a lot of Tottenham related blogs, and he reviewed it. And then he did The Crew and Top Dog and all them. But I said to him, well, you should read Wings of a Sparrow, because it's a football book, blah, blah, blah. And he read that and he loved it. And then he read Billy's Log, and he just said, I don't get, how have I never read these books before? They're like books about me. And I kind of like that reaction. Yeah. And I said, well, I don't know why you've never read them before, but tell everybody so they don't make the same mistake.
Yeah.
And I quite like that. I like the fact that when people say, I'm looking forward to what he's going to do next. Because it makes it more interesting. I don't want to churn out the same stuff constantly. I not because I get bored. It is actually because I get bored.
So writing
and the other thing as well is, I like to write things that are kind of current.
Yeah.
So in the Know, for example, there's lots of references to like gang crime in London, what it's doing to British society, not in a xenophobic or jingoistic kind of way, but just the fact that people are pissed off.
Yeah.
And that's not just Billy Evans, that's journalists and coppers and all sorts of people. And some of the stuff that's going on at the moment you just couldn't make up. And there's always the risk that you're going to stray into territory which is not dangerous from a real life point of view, because controversy sells. But there is a risk of saying stuff that, much writers will argue where you shouldn't be afraid to write this. You shouldn't be afraid to say this. But there are things there are lines I wouldn't personally cross. And the way, some of the things we're seeing today, even over this weekend, you're just like, well, hang on a minute. I wouldn't write that. I don't want to write that. And, it's which is why I prefer comedy, because you can kind of say anything and get away with it.
I think comedy for me is something that I would really struggle. If I was to pick something that would be hard to write, I would think comedy would be a really difficult thing to write. How do you go around sort of writing comedy? Is it something you kind of visualize and you just think, or do you actually look for sort of a character and play on that character's personality?
I think it's the situation. Yeah. I mean, with Billy's Log, that came about purely because I always used to, my books get printed in Poland now, which is a bit of a pain, but they used to get printed in Chatham. Okay. And I always used to go and watch them roll off the presses because it's a really cathartic exercise. You've done all this work, you're staring at a pile of A4 paper, and then all of a sudden there's just this line of hundreds of your books. It's phenomenal to watch.
I bet that's amazing, yeah.
Oh, it is. The first time, it's like bursting into tears the first time I saw it almost. But the next time it's, well, how many free copies can I blow?
Yeah.
So, but I was there and I was talking to all the guys because they're all football fans and we're chatting football and stuff. And one of the blokes gives me this book and he said, you need to read this book. And I looked at it and I said, I'm not going to read that shite. And he said, no, you should read that book because you need to write something like this. And that book was Bridget Jones' Diary.
Okay.
And I read it and I just thought, this is like anti-man propaganda. That's all this is. This is blaming blokes for everything. So I wrote Billy's Log, which is like bloke's version of Bridget Jones' Diary.
Right, okay.
And it's about a guy who has got all these, he's a single guy, he's a bit of a loner, can't find a girlfriend. His aspirations are this page-free bird with big tits, which is beyond everybody because he's just an average bloke. And it's about all the things that happened to him. And it was kind of, I won't say it was autobiographical, but there's a lot of stuff in there that had actually happened to me and my mate Pete. It's really based on, because it is kind of his life. And it's about how he comes through that. And a lot of people are saying to me, you need to write the sequel to Billy's Log. And I did start doing that a couple of years ago. And I really do need to do that. But I found it very easy because I could base it on real life. Yeah. I had that experience of being quite shy with women, of kind of, liking women as friends, because all the best people I know are women. I could probably still say that, but at that time they definitely were. And I like being about women. My daughters are brilliant. And I learned a lot from them. With Wings of a Sparrow, it was more, it's about a guy who inherits ownership of his local rivals. It's kind of, do you remember the film Brewster's Millions?
Not too familiar with that, no.
Good God. Oh, I showed my age there. It's about, Wings of a Sparrow is about a guy who inherits ownership of his hated local rivals.
Okay.
And his initial, and plus a small fortune. And from an uncle he never knew he had. And his initial view is, I'm going to bankrupt these scumbags and send them into oblivion. But then he's read the will, and the will says you have to run this club for 12 months and they have to finish higher up the league than they did last year, or you'll lose everything.
Right.
So he has to do it. And it's how he deals with his wife. All his mates who all hate him all of a sudden. All the fans of his rivals who all hate him because he's like writes the fanzine, which has been slagging him off forever. And so I could base that on real life because I've had these problems with, I'm a Watford fan, I've had these problems with Luton up the road. And funnily enough, when we went to publish it, I wrote it about Watford and Luton because I based it on myself.
Yeah.
And Watford said, yeah, that's fine. And we're happy with that. And Luton said no, because they all hate me with a passion. And I'm quite happy with that. So I had to make it about United and City. It was kind of generic thing.
Yeah.
But it is about Watford and Leeds. So I could base that on myself. But with comedy, I come from a comic background. I grew up with 5 brothers. So apart from being in a war zone, it's like a constant comedy. It's just like one long comedy sketch. And then being in the military, you're always laughing, always joking. You've got dark humor underpins everything. And so I've got all that to call on. And I can't tell a joke to save my life. Genuinely cannot. Even though my dad's a comic, my brother's a comic, they're all brilliant storytellers, but I can write a story and I can write a scenario. And I really enjoy doing that. It's great fun. If I can sit here pissing myself laughing, I know I'm kind of on the right track.
Yeah, definitely. If we talk briefly, well, you mentioned obviously the military career a couple of times there, but you recently were a finalist in the Veteran Awards as well, which is a fantastic achievement.
I still am.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
They haven't finished yet. Yeah. I still am. Because come October when they have the finals, because I'm never going to win, that'll be it. It'll be over. So I'm still a finalist.
But it's a fantastic achievement just to get to that level as well, isn't it? So, but that shows all the work that you've been doing behind the scenes as well, isn't it?
I'm kind of I didn't get involved in when I left in '94, because up to that for probably 4 years before that actually 10 years before that I'd been big in motorsport.
Okay.
And I've done a lot. I've been competing constantly. So much of that was in Germany. When I came back from Germany in 1988, I began competing in stock car racing in this country. And so most of all my weekends were spent racing or working on cars. Very little of my contact was in, other than at work, was I didn't do the sergeant's mess stuff. I'd given up drinking by then anyway. So when I left the military, it wasn't that much of a transition in terms of my working life. I didn't go into work in inverted commas. I was on film sets and crap like that. And I didn't really get the veteran thing. And at that point, the word veteran and saying you were a veteran was still quite unfashionable. And then what started it all was a few years back, Stan Collymore, the football Ulrika Johnson beating scumbag, put out a series of tweets about the Falklands War. Now, I'm a Falklands veteran. And a lot of people through Facebook and stuff like that contacted me and said, have you seen this shit? And I went ballistic and I got involved in all kinds of things, which culminated in, a protest outside Talk Sport, him getting banned from ever appearing on Match of the Day, all sorts of stuff like that. Because he wouldn't apologize. Yeah. And basically he accused us of stealing the Falklands. And to, 255 guys never came back from there, and I wasn't going to sit back and not just me, there was hundreds of us, and he wouldn't apologize, and he just dug himself deeper in, and in the end he just thought, screw you, arsehole. And after that point I kind of began to realize that the veteran community was part of my life, really, that I hadn't acknowledged, and I've been involved in it ever since, and it's hardening, and at the moment it's going through so many changes, because I don't know if you saw Amp Dover yesterday, but the old Bill attacked and they did attack a veteran from behind, and he was arrested for quite a while. We still don't know, and there's a hardening amongst the veteran community now, which people are really getting quite angry. I'm not particularly involved in that side of things, but I understand, and it I spent 18 years doing that. It becomes part of your life, and I'm so glad I did it. But whether I become veteran of the year.
So when is that? October, you said? October
the 7th. Yeah, I did. We had to go up and film videos in the Midlands and that sort of stuff. And there's a black tie dinner, and I said to my missus, look, we've got to go. Yeah. Because there's no way I'm ever going to get nominated for nothing. Even though I know I'm not going to win. There's no. I've got to go.
Well, you never know.
They're great nights. So it would be good fun.
Amazing. We've got a few questions on the show that are kind of staple
Oh,
for
Christ.
our.
Okay.
If there's a character in fiction, any character at all, could be in any genre, and you could take that character and sort of work on that character yourself, what character would you choose and why?
Bloody hell, that's a question and a half. I love this is really random, I know, but I'm a massive fan of the Jane Tennyson character from
Okay.
Prime Suspect, the Linda LaPlante stuff, Prime Suspect. I think there's so much. I think she ended it too early, and I know they did the retrospects on TV, Jane Tennyson 1973 stuff, but I just think there was more. I think I wouldn't dare accuse Linda LaPlante of losing her way, because I think she's done okay, to be fair. But I think there was more to come from her character.
Okay.
I'd love to do something like that.
Okay. If there was someone you could work with, any author of your choosing, would there be someone in particular you'd like to work with?
No, I would never work with another author because, and I say that I've co-written scripts.
Okay.
And it's a bloody nightmare unless you're very lucky. I mean, I work with a guy called Gary Lawrence, and we wrote a film called We Still Kill the Old Way Together, and we've done a couple of other things as well. And I really like Gary, and we work really well together. Working with other people is tough, and it's bad enough on a film when by the time you finish your script and then it's given to everybody else to start changing stuff. So then you've got their input, plus me and Gary don't always agree on what we want to do. That's bad enough. To do it on a book over a period of months would be a nightmare. Funnily enough, I'm involved with, no, I don't want to say too much, I can't say too much at the moment about this, but there's I've been asked to get involved in an autobiography of a politician. Not a big name, but they will be a big name.
Right.
And I've kind of said, I don't want to be directly involved in this. I'd love to write it, but I can't because I think it would be damaging to them. The whole football hooligan thing and all the other crap that gets shown at me. I'd love to do it. I'd love to work with them, but I just can't because I know it would end up being quite a difficult process.
Okay. If we just mention about the films for a minute with your screenwriting. Which was your first film that got produced?
The first film that got produced was a short film, It's a Casual Life. The first feature was Green Street.
And you won a few awards for your writing at times through those films as well, didn't you?
I didn't win. The film won loads of awards. The writing didn't win any awards. And I never even thought it would. I thought Green Street might. Green Street was you could do a show on Green Street and putting Green Street together because it turned out to be a bit of a nightmare to work on. But I thought it might do well because the subject matter was really strong.
Yeah.
The initial idea for marketing it, which they kind of totally ditched in the end. Sorry, that's my emails pinging because I didn't turn the notifications off. The marketing was on point, and then they seemed to change it all at the last minute, and they seemed to get it completely wrong. But I knew there was a market for that film. You know, I knew it would do well. Funnily enough, there were plans to write Green Street 4 last year, a proper sequel, not the other two. Forget them two. And although we got everyone on board, you know, all the major cast were going to come back. The studio said they didn't want to do it. But absolutely, I've got my suspicions as to why. But to me, it's weird. It's money in the bank. It would have been.
Yeah.
Very strange. Very strange.
So for those of us that don't know, if you're a screenwriter and it becomes a big production that wins awards and stuff, how does that work for a screenwriter? Is there any sort of does it go on like a tick in the box for a CV or anything like that, or is there any sort of reward? Or when you are a screenwriter that has something produced, is it just that's it and move on?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I mean, because to be honest, I don't. Like I said before, it's a hobby for me, so I don't really
Yeah.
get involved in that side of it. I mean, Green Street was. I've seen Green Street 3 times probably, and I cringe when I watch it because I think it could be so much better. There's so much wrong with Green Street. And I'm quite open in the fact that I say there's a lot that we could have done better, that could have been done better in Green Street. There's a lot wrong. And people say to me, well, why is it on your CV? And I say, well, when you write a movie like Green Street, which is still popular today,
Yeah.
why would you not want that on your CV? That's just
Still a
ridiculous.
fantastic achievement, still, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's people know me more for Green Street than probably anything else, which is so why on earth would you not want to kind of make the most of that? Initially, it's a weird one. The more you've got produced, the more people ask you to do, which is fine. But as I say, as it's my hobby, I just turn most of it down anyway because I don't. Again, it comes back to red lines. There are certain things I won't do. I won't write anything that's got loads of guns in it. This crap about standing on street corners with Uzis firing guns into it. I just no, thank you. Nothing involving drugs at all. I've got no interest in that culture at all. Or nothing kind of overtly sexual, for want of a better word. Gratuitous sex, I've got no interest in it.
There's one quote that's on your website I'd like to ask you about, and it's the most famous author you've probably never heard of. That is on your website.
Yeah, because that's true. My market. I'm not a mainstream author. You don't often see any of my books in Watson's or W.H. Smith's or anything like that. But yet I'll outsell not most people. Well, I'm a pro writer. I do okay. I certainly do more than a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And yet no one's ever heard of me, outside of my market, because my market is, I'm quite clear, my market is guys like me who don't necessarily walk into Waterston's on a Saturday and look for something to read. They're not interested in, books about whatever, by black. They're not interested in books by black writers or feminist writers or Chinese writers or immigrant writers or anything. They're just interested in books that entertain them. So I write stories that entertain them.
So when it mentions that you've sold just over 1 million books or copies, or in sales, how did that? Did you have were you made aware of that when that happened?
No, I actually added them up one day because someone asked me, and I thought the last time I did it was probably about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I went on, I dug out all my old royalty statements, and then dug out all my new royalty statements, and then went online to check all the ebooks out. And then I'd sell a lot of books abroad and added them all up. And all of a sudden I'm looking at like 7 figures, and it's fuck.
That's incredible.
This is mad. And it's like, but you get no recognition of that. I mean, The Crew, for example, when we released The Crew as an ebook, which was November 2011, the publisher said, you should put this out for free. And Everywhere We Go, which was the first non-fiction book, put them out for free as lost leaders. And I'm saying, well, look, you know what you're doing. I'll go with that. Well, The Crew has been, if you look at the Amazon football charts, the free books, The Crew has been at either number 1 or number 2 for 9 years.
That's incredible.
It's number 1 today. It's still number 1 today. If you look at the football charts.
Wow.
You've never had any recognition of that from Amazon.
It's unbelievable.
It's bizarre. I find that quite bizarre. And you probably won't, I don't know if you'll find another book that's been at number 1 for 9 years on Amazon anyway. I have no idea.
Perhaps you should write to them.
But I just find it's a very weird industry. I don't.
Yeah.
And I say to people, there's no way to do this. There's no way to write. There's no way to publish. There's no way to market. There's just ways.
Yeah.
So find which way works for you and stick to that. And it might not work for anybody else, but it works for me.
I think it's a valuable point for someone who's because we have a lot of authors that come on the show, because we do indie shows as well. We have indie authors that come on. So I think it's a real valid point to say that there are people that try and get published, or the people that are published and still trying to get more published deals. But if you have books that aren't getting picked up, that you could just release yourself as an ebook as well as being published.
There's no, when it started, it was like, well, if you self-publish, that's kind of, it's the low rent end of the business.
Yeah.
If you put out as an ebook, it's vanity publishing. In effect, it's vanity publishing, but it isn't. It's just rubbish. If you've written, to write a book is an amazing achievement. To get it published and into a shop is an incredible achievement. But there's no shame in writing a book and putting it out as an ebook or publishing it yourself. Not even, if vanity publishing it and selling 6 books in your local indie bookshop. There's no shame in that. It's a massive achievement.
Yeah.
And you should be incredibly proud of yourself for doing it. But the publishing work, snobbery runs through publishing like a cancer.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable. And the best writer you've never heard of. I've sold 1 million books. I've never been invited to a single literary festival in 25 years as a pro writer, not one. I give my opinion on stuff and I'm kind of slaughtered, or I did it yesterday. I got involved in an argument with somebody yesterday who were saying, publishers should be doing more for disabled writers. Well, I'm registered disabled. Yeah, I don't think anyone should be doing anything to me. What you want is an additional open door for you to walk through, which means you've got an advantage over somebody else just because you're disabled. Yeah, if I pick a book up, I don't know if the bloke who wrote it was disabled or not. I don't want to know. I just want to be entertained. I want value from a £7.99 or whatever it is. And it's just, there's this phenomenal snobbery that runs through publishing. It's I get in a lot of trouble for it, and I get into a lot of arguments about it, and it probably explains why I never get invited to literary festivals. But I've been here, done it, I'm still doing it, and I will continue to do it. And if you don't like what I do or how I do it, that's your problem. It's not my problem.
Well, I think every single author needs to think that way in terms of there will be people that won't like your work. And I think the more popular a writer gets, the more criticism I think they receive anyway. I think the more popular you become, the thicker your skin must be when it comes to reviews. But I think the publishing world has changed a lot over the last, say, 10, 20 years, especially when it comes to self-publishing. So I think the only thing that hasn't evolved, perhaps, is the publishing world itself. The traditional way of doing things is still very slow, and they... someone mentioned on Twitter the other day they had a rejection for their manuscript 4 years later, and that just seems incredible that it takes them that long, and if that's the system they've still got, then it needs to change. It
is changing. There's no doubt about it, and I think they're open to change. I mean, there was the report last year about working class authors, which is the big thing at the moment, and getting more working class people and. I have my own views on that, into publishing and writing. I mean, this goes back to something else. When we started writing, Eddie and I, and we kickstarted, what we wrote got tagged as Hooli Lit really quick. And it was really demeaned as being this low rent kind of genre. Yet within 5 years, there were 72 books banged out in that genre, most of which were written by first-time authors. They brought an awful lot of people back into reading. The number of emails I used to get and continue to get, yours are the only books I've ever read. I hadn't read a book for 30 years. My husband, I've never seen my husband read a book. Yet I've just seen him over the last few weeks read The Crew, Top Dog, and In the Know. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
That never got acknowledged at all. Never. And we did not just me, there was loads of us, Cass Pennant, there was a lot of people. We did amazing things and got a lot of people writing who'd never written before, reading who had no interest in reading, made publishers an awful lot of money. And yet as it died out, the talented guys all kind of got dropped. And I felt really sorry for them. It was a real shame, but snobbery. It's snobbery for you.
Wow. Well, we're going to have to wrap up very soon, Dougie. But before we do go, I just want to ask you actually before we get onto the final sort of questions or so. In the know, this cover here. I mean, do you have a favorite cover of your books, and how much influence? I know you said with your self-published, you obviously get a lot more control about your covers in that respect. Is this? I like the look of this. It's a catches
Great
the eye.
cover. It is a
Excuse me.
great cover.
Yeah, it really catches the eye. Do you have a favorite cover, and how much influence do you have in say this cover?
I don't really. I mean, my favourite cover is probably the ebook cover for Billy's Log.
Okay.
But that runs it close. I mean, that came about really because Darren, my publisher, he said, look, we need to start thinking about covers. And I'd had this idea for a guy silhouetted like that. And we got some mock-ups done. I mean, the one thing I changed, the initial mock-up didn't have the flag on clear enough. And I wanted that because I wanted it to suggest something that is actually in the book, where the book takes you. The one thing I change is the tagline above my name should have been in a different colour. It needs to be lighter. From the writer of Green Street, that says, which isn't clear. But that is a really strong cover, I think. It really stands out. I really like it. The cover for the next one is absolutely blinding. I've already got it. So that will become my favourite. I love that cover. I think it's just brilliant. Even though I have an aversion to orange because of the club up the road. But I do really like it. Yeah. Very smart. You've gone silent. I can't hear a word you're saying.
Oh, apologies. Sorry.
That's right.
Yeah, that is really nice. Bright, catches the eye. I really like that. So with the new cover that you just spoke about that, you really like.
Yeah.
Why is that so different? What's so special?
Well,
about that?
it's a movie. It's a movie poster.
Okay.
Because as I said, I wrote the script. I've just noticed you spelt my name wrong in the corner. It's only one G. It's a movie poster, and so I really like the movie poster because they're historically very strong, and it's predominantly green, which I like, and it looks good. So we're going to use it for the book as well because it'll stand out. I mean, again, that's another thing I'd say to authors. If you're involved in the cover of your book, just spend half an hour in Waterstones, walk around and see what's standing out. If you go in Waterstones or supermarkets or whatever. These days you'll see book after book after book, which are pastel colors with someone's face staring out of you. They're all the same.
Yeah.
All exactly the same. And then all of a sudden you'll see a book which really jumps out at you. And that's what you need because you've got to stand out. It's a competition. It's a war. It's a war out there. I mean, you don't want to be like everybody else.
There was an article we spoke about recently on the show that, books, the market has been flooded. I know something, especially in the self-publishing world, a lot more than it used to be. So you are having to fight that much harder to stand out. So, absolutely have a cover that really jumps at you would help. Dougie, we're going to have to finish up because we're nearly hitting an hour. But I just want to say, before we do go, where can people find your work and what can they look out for?
You can get all my books through Amazon. I'm a big fan of Amazon. It's something else that gets me into a lot of trouble. You can order, obviously you can order all my books through any bookshop or any indie bookshop. They'll get them all. If you want them quick, then Amazon is your place. I'm quite happy to send everybody there. If you want more information, you can go to my website, which is dougiebrimson.com. Or you can follow me on Twitter, which is at Dougie Brimson. Although if you do that, and if you're faint-hearted, I would dissuade you because I tend to go off on rants every so often. Facebook. I'm everywhere. I'm omnipresent.
Well, we will leave links to the your website and the Amazon links in the show descriptions when that does go out. And Dougie with 2 G's is just on the software, so it's not on the screen. That's completely fine.
I've just realised that behind my head is loads of research for my new book.
Oh, we can't zoom in.
Please don't zoom in. Please don't zoom in.
Brilliant. No, we can't see that. That's really tiny.
That's good.
No worries. But I hope you do well in the awards, or at least enjoy them. and
I love it.
in
I love it.
October. And we will, anything you want to promote in through the books coming up, let us know, and we'll try and promote that for you. But thank you so much for coming on. It's been a genuine pleasure chatting to you. And
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
yeah, no worries. And all the
Anytime.
best. And hopefully let us know, tweet the show when you get, well, I will see your tweet anyway about the Veteran Awards, but I hope you do well with that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dougie.
All right. Nice to talk to you. Cheers. Thank you very much.